Welcome back everyone to another video here on the channel, and that is right, round 2 is already here. Who would have thought we're going into the third round of football already? And today I'm going to be going through my tips and predictions ahead of the round 2 for the 2024 AFL season. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, as always, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Enough wasting your time, let's get straight into it. Now, as I have done in the previous 2 tipping videos, I would just like to quickly acknowledge the fact that I do have a tipping comp ahead of the 2025 season, and we are currently at 59 members, and I'm praying to get 65 by the end of the week. And whoever finishes in the top 3 by the end will receive cash prizes. Third place receiving a cash prize of $15, second place getting $30, and first place getting a massive cash prize of $100. Currently in third place is Cooper Lee with 9 correct tips. AFL Talks also has 9 points and is in second place, but he's slightly higher due to margin. And first place is Gus Footy with a total of 10 points. Now, some people may have more points than correct tips, as I do give everyone an extra point if they get a perfect round of tipping. But I'm certainly not one of those people, as I only pulled a 5 out of 9 tips last week. Now let me quickly go through all 4 of the games that I got incorrect. The first one, obvious one, Richmond versus Carlton. I mean, anyone with even the slightest football knowledge is not tipping Richmond. They pulled off what will be one of the biggest upsets in 2025. The next game was Sydney versus Brisbane, the grand final rematch. I only tipped the Swans because it was being played at the SCG. I knew it was going to be a close clash. Both teams are in very good form, but unfortunately the Brisbane Lions just got the better of them once again and won the game by 4 points. The other game was Bulldogs versus North Melbourne. I only really tipped North Melbourne just for the sake of it. I knew the Dogs were probably going to win the game, but due to a few key outs, obviously Marcus Bonampelli, Cody Waitman, I think Liam Jones as well, I just thought maybe, just maybe North Melbourne could just get the better of them. It ended up being a relatively close game throughout, but the Dogs just kicked away later in the game, winning the game by 16 points. And the final game of the round, I also got that tipping correct, being Gold Coast versus West Coast. I tipped the Eagles. I thought maybe they could get a win in front of their home crowd, their first game of the season. But the Suns, they've shown that they can actually play away, although they did only beat the Eagles, but it ended up being the biggest thrashing in their history, and I stupidly tipped the Eagles by 2 points. But now, let's get into the reason that you guys clicked on this video, being my tips for round 2. On the Thursday, we have the Carlton Blues taking on the Hawthorn Hawks at the MCG at 7:30 p.m. From my point of view, I strongly believe this is a no-brainer. The Hawks currently sit at second on the ladder by the end of round 1, which I understand it's way too early for the ladder to even mean anything going into tips, but things are looking very, very good for the Hawks at the moment. They beat the Swans by 20 points away in opening rounds, and most recently they faced off and defeated the Essendon Bombers, while the Blues have started off the season in one of the worst ways you can. They lost against the Richmond Tigers, who some predicted to not even win a single game in 2025. Now, I could yap on a bit more about what I think about this game, but let's face it, the Hawks should win this game pretty comfortably, and I'll tip them by 38 points. Now moving on to the Friday, we have got the Western Bulldogs taking on my boys, the Collingwood Magpies, at the MCG at 7:40 p.m. The Pies are coming off a 91-point win against Port Adelaide after losing to the Giants the week before by 52 points away. While the Dogs, on the other hand, did just beat North Melbourne, but it was only by 16 points. And at 3/4 time, North Melbourne were well and truly still in the game. The Dogs were just very lucky they were able to kick away in the second half of the 4th quarter, which you'd certainly be hoping you'd beating North Melbourne by a lot more. But this will be one of the more interesting games, as the Western Bulldogs will be celebrating their 100th year anniversary, meaning that they will be bringing their A game to this one. Unfortunately, they do still have some key outs, being Marcus Bonampelli, Cody Waitman, and Liam Jones. And based on recent form, I think I am going to back the Pies in this one, but as this game will mean a lot to the Dogs, it should be very, very close, and the Pies do always like to play in a close game. Well, I mean, the last 2 weeks they didn't, but I think the Pies will get the job done over at the G, and they'll win by 2 goals. Now moving on to the Saturday, we've got Essendon taking on the Crows at 1:20 p.m. at the G. I see this game being quite an interesting match. Although the Bombers are coming off a loss against the Hawks last week, they certainly had more scoring opportunities. They were just let down with their accuracy, while the Crows are coming off a massive 63-point win. So even though the Adelaide Crows are looking like they should win this game pretty comfortably, you'd hope Essendon put up a bit more of a fight than the Saints did last week. Isaac Kako had an alright debut, but probably played better in the preseason matches. Although to be fair, he kicked a goal and racked up 14 disposals to his name. Crouch, who had 31 disposals, and Saligo, who had 29, both played quite well last week, with them kicking a goal each. And I think because of how poor the Bombers' accuracy was last week, I think it will kill them going into this game. In fact, I'll predict the Adelaide Crows to win by 19 points. Now moving on to Port Adelaide versus Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. This will be at 4:15 p.m. This is one of the easier tips of the round, as Port Adelaide did just come off a 91-point loss, and the Richmond Tigers pulled off a really good win against the Carlton Blues last week. So I think I'm going to go with the Tigers on this one by 392 points. Okay, I'm just kidding, of course. It was a good win by the Tigers last week, and it was really good to see them proving everyone wrong and did win a game this year, as some were saying they weren't going to. And I understand that Port Adelaide did get absolutely thrashed by the Pies last week by 91 points, obviously. But you can't tell me the Tigers are going to pull off 2 upsets in a row, especially not at Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. So I'm obviously going to back the Port Adelaide to win this one, and we'll go 36 points. Final game of this Saturday, we've got St Kilda taking on Geelong at Marvel Stadium at 7:35 p.m. Well, it's looking like this week's Saturday games are going to be quite hard to watch, this game being one of the reasons. Geelong are well and truly in premiership contention, as some were saying in pre-season, and they backed it up last week after defeating Fremantle by 78 points, and the Freo Dockers were actually predicted to play well this season. St Kilda lost to the Adelaide Crows last week by a 63-point margin, and to make matters worse, they lost Wangani Malira late in the 4th quarter after he went off with an injury, although I don't know how serious it was, as I was not even watching the game. I turned it off at halftime, but nothing's come out just yet about whether or not he'll miss next week. But in the Geelong game, Jeremy Cameron kicked 4 goals. Bailey Smith was best on ground after not even playing a single AFL game in over a year, and the Cats maintained the lead for 100% of the game. So I'm going to back the Cats to win the game, even though the Saints typically do play quite well at Marvel Stadium, but I think the Cats will get the better of them and win the game by 31 points. To kick off the Sunday, we've got Brisbane taking on the Eagles at 1:10 p.m. at the Gabba. I'm not going to spend too much time on this tip, as it probably is the easiest game to tip, and I'm not going to joke around this time. I'm not going to say the Eagles are going to thrash them. The Eagles played absolutely shocking last week against the Gold Coast Suns. In fact, the Gold Coast Suns pulled off their biggest win in their history, actually, and I'm slowly starting to believe that the Eagles could finish lower than the Tigers in 2025. Brisbane faced off against the Sydney Swans last week in the grand final rematch, and they won the game in a 4-point thriller, and that alone just tells me that the Brisbane Lions are going to go out there and absolutely thrash the Eagles this week, and the Eagles are going to be embarrassed once again and lose the game by 63 points. Next up, another game that is going to be relatively easy to tip, being North versus Melbourne at 3:20 p.m. This is probably going to be back-to-back games that are going to be thrashings. This time it will be in Melbourne's favour, even though they did lose last week. They played absolutely outstandingly last week against the GWS Giants, unfortunately just lost the game by 3 points. Although to be fair, North Melbourne did put up a good fight against the Doggies last week, and I stupidly backed North Melbourne to win against the Dogs. That one was just more of a joke, and I'm like, what if? And I was this close to changing my tip last second, but I'm like, I already said in my tipping video I'm going to tip them, and if North Melbourne somehow pull off an upset, I'm really going to regret it. But obviously they didn't, and the Dogs won by 16 points. Petrarca, he's back and arguably in better form than he ever was. Clayton Oliver, he's back in form after a very average 2024 season. Max Gawn, well, he's Max Gawn. And I just don't see a world where the Demons lose this one. I think I'm going to back in the Demons to win the game by 39 points. And to conclude round 2, we've got Fremantle taking on the Sydney Swans at Optus Stadium at 6:10 p.m. What a great game we have to end off round 2. I strongly believe this will be game of the round. The Sydney Swans played a really great game against the Brisbane Lions last week, but they just couldn't get over the line and win after the Lions got the job done by 4 points. While the Freo Dockers got absolutely thrashed by the Cats last week and lost by 78. Although Murphy Reid kicked 4 goals last week, and all 4 of those goals were within a 6-minute time span. Brayshaw, Sarong, Amira, they're all looking absolutely outstanding going into this year. While over at the Swans, Blakey and Heaney, they were probably the best players for the Swans last week, after both of them only just missing out on 25 disposals. And Brodie Grundy, he's so good in the ruck, and him and Luke Jackson will be a really good matchup. Both teams' forward lines are looking amazing, both teams' midfields are looking amazing, and I just think the Swans have a slightly better back line, which is why I think the Swans will just get the job done, and we'll go the Swans to win the game by 5 points. And that will wrap up today's video, everyone. I hope you all did enjoy, and once again, if you did, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new, and I hope to see you all in the next video that I post here on the channel.